there's something you've probably been trying not to think about. That faint sensation in your tooth. Not sharp enough to panic. Not strong enough to force action, but persistent enough to stay in the back of your mind. And here's the uncomfortable truth most people avoid hearing. If you're feeling something, something has already started. Tooth decay doesn't begin with pain. It begins quietly, beneath the surface, slowly breaking down what once felt solid and untouchable. And the reason this matters so much is because by the time most people react, the process is no longer simple to stop. But right now, if you're here, watching this, there's a high chance you're still in that invisible window, the stage where things have started but haven't gone too far. And that changes everything. Because what feels like just a small discomfort could actually be the early phase of enamel demineralization, a stage where acids from bacteria are pulling essential minerals out of your tooth structure. No cavity yet, no drilling required. But the integrity of your tooth is already being challenged. This is the part no one really explains. Your body is not passive in this process. It's actively trying to repair the damage through something called remineralization. Your saliva carries calcium and phosphate, working constantly to rebuild weakened enamel. But here's the catch. It can only do that if you stop disrupting the process. And most people don't. Late night, snacking, sugary drinks, acidic foods, constant exposure without giving your mouth time to recover. These habits keep your teeth in a prolonged, acidic state, where breakdown happens faster than repair. So what happens tonight actually matters more than you think, because the difference between a reversible condition and irreversible decay is often timing. That quiet worry you feel right now, the thought that it might get worse overnight, that you could wake up with more pain, more damage, more problems. That fear isn't irrational. It's your awareness trying to catch up with what's already happening. And if part of you is hesitating, maybe because of the cost of dental care or the fear of what a dentist might find, there's something important you should know. There is a way to take smart, immediate action without jumping straight into expensive procedures. We left a practical guide in the first link in the description so you can access it quickly. Click and take a look, because doing nothing is still a decision. And it's usually the one that leads to more complex outcomes. Now let's bring this back to what you can actually control tonight. First, you need to reduce the acidic environment in your mouth. That means avoiding sugar before bed, no late-night snacks, no sipping drinks that feed bacteria while you sleep. Second, support your enamel. Brushing with fluoride toothpaste before bed isn't just routine, it's strategic. Fluoride helps strengthen weakened enamel and makes it more resistant to acid attacks. This isn't opinion. It's one of the most well-documented preventive tools in dentistry. Third, give your mouth time to recover. Saliva flow decreases at night, which makes your teeth more vulnerable while you sleep. That's why what you do before bed carries more weight than any other moment in your day. And yet, even knowing all this, many people still freeze, not because they don't care, but because the situation feels bigger than they expected, because the idea that something inside their tooth is already changing creates a kind of quiet panic. If that's what you're feeling right now, you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not without options. There's a method explained in the pinned comment for those who feel that urgency, that fear of things getting worse, and want a safe, structured way to act immediately at home. Because here's the reality, decay doesn't spread in a single night. But it also doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It moves based on conditions. And those conditions are influenced by what you do consistently. That's why this moment matters. Not because everything will collapse overnight, but because tonight is an opportunity to interrupt the pattern. To shift from passive concern to intentional action. And when you understand what stage you're in, when you recognize that early demineralization is still reversible, you stop reacting out of fear and start acting with clarity. You don't need to ignore the problem. You don't need to panic either. You just need to respond at the right time. And this might be that time, because what starts as something small only stays small if you do something about it. What's actually happening while you sleep? Here's something most people never consider. Your mouth becomes a battlefield at night, not metaphorically, literally. While you're unconscious, your body's natural defense mechanisms drop. Saliva production slows to a trickle. Your mouth becomes drier, more acidic. And that creates the perfect conditions for bacterial activity to accelerate. Think about it. During the day, you swallow constantly. Every swallow washes away acids, bacteria, food particles. Your saliva circulates, it neutralizes, it repairs. But at night, all of that slows down. Your teeth are left exposed, sometimes for 8 hours straight, in an environment where the balance has shifted in favor of decay. And if you went to bed with sugar residue in your mouth, or acidic compounds coating your enamel, or even just remnants of dinner stuck between your teeth, you've essentially given bacteria an all-night buffet. They feed, they produce acid, and that acid eats away at your enamel, slowly, silently, relentlessly. This is why people often wake up with that fuzzy feeling on their teeth. That's not just morning breath, that's biofilm, a colony of bacteria that's been thriving while you slept. And here's the critical part. Each night this happens, the demineralization progresses a little further. You might not feel it, you might not see it, but microscopically, the structure of your tooth is weakening. Minerals are being pulled out faster than your body can replace them. And eventually, usually without warning, you cross the threshold from reversible to irreversible. That's when the white spot becomes a brown spot, when the rough texture becomes a pit, when the sensitivity becomes pain. And by then, you're not asking, how do I reverse this? You're asking, how much is this going to cost? Because once cavitation occurs, once there's an actual hole in the tooth, remineralization can't fix it. The structure is gone. Bacterial invasion has reached the dentin layer, and the only solution is mechanical intervention, drilling, filling, sometimes worse. That's the trajectory. And it's not inevitable, but it is predictable, because the same patterns produce the same results. Late night eating, skipping the nighttime brush, falling asleep with a sweet drink on the nightstand. These aren't just bad habits, they're accelerants. Each one pushes the timeline forward, each one gives decay more time to work. And the cruel irony is, most people know this. They know they should brush before bed, they know sugar is bad for teeth, they know all of this. But knowing doesn't equal doing, because between knowing and doing, there's a gap filled with fatigue, procrastination. The belief that one night won't matter. But here's what does matter. The cumulative effect. One night might not destroy your tooth, but 30 nights, 90 nights, a year of nights. That's how decay wins. Not through one catastrophic event, but through 1,000 small surrenders. And that's exactly why tonight is different. Because you're here. You're reading this. You're aware. Which means you're no longer operating on autopilot. You're in that rare moment where awareness meets opportunity, and what you choose to do in the next hour could determine whether this stays manageable or becomes a problem you can't ignore. The overnight protocol that actually works. Let's get specific. If you're taking this seriously, if you actually want to interrupt the decay process tonight, here's what needs to happen. Step 1. Clean your mouth properly. Not just brushing, that's important, but it's not enough. You need to remove everything that bacteria can feed on. That means flossing between every tooth, especially the ones in the back that you can't easily see. Most people skip this. They think brushing alone is sufficient. It's not. Food particles wedged between teeth create isolated pockets of decay. The brush can't reach them, and overnight, those pockets become bacterial breeding grounds. So floss thoroughly. Even if your gums bleed a little at first, that's inflammation responding to irritation, and it will decrease with consistent care. Step 2. Brush with intention. Use a fluoride toothpaste, not a trendy charcoal formula, not a natural alternative that sounds good but lacks the active ingredient that matters. Fluoride. It's been studied for over 70 years. It works. It integrates into your enamel structure and makes it more resistant to acid dissolution. Brush for 2 full minutes, not 30 seconds, not until it feels clean. 2 minutes every surface, front, back, chewing surfaces. And here's the critical part most people get wrong. After you spit, don't rinse. Let the fluoride sit on your teeth. The extended contact time allows the ions to penetrate deeper into the enamel matrix. Rinsing immediately washes it all away. You lose the benefit. So spit but don't rinse, even if it feels weird. Step 3. Use a remineralizing rinse, not a standard mouthwash. Those are mostly cosmetic. They freshen breath, but don't contribute much to structural repair. You want a rinse that contains calcium phosphate compounds or additional fluoride. Swish for the recommended time. Let it reach all surfaces. Spit. But again, don't rinse with water after. Step 4. Eliminate the nighttime acid sources. No snacks after this. No drinks except water. If you're someone who keeps a soda or juice by the bed, stop. Every sip reacidifies your mouth. Every exposure restarts the demineralization clock. Water only. And if you struggle with dry mouth at night, common for people who breathe through their mouth while sleeping, consider a bedside humidifier or a saliva substitute spray. Dry mouth is one of the biggest overnight risk factors. Saliva is your primary defense. When it's not there, decay accelerates. Step 5. Consider the angle of attack. If you already know which tooth is bothering you, spend extra time on that area. Angle the brush so the bristles reach the gum line. That's where demineralization often starts. Don't scrub hard. Gentle, consistent pressure is more effective and less likely to damage your gums or wear down enamel. And if you're experiencing sensitivity in a specific spot, apply a small amount of fluoride toothpaste directly to that area after brushing. Let it sit. It creates a localized high-concentration treatment zone. Now here's the part most protocols leave out. This isn't a one-night fix. What you do tonight interrupts the process. But reversing demineralization takes consistency. The enamel didn't weaken in one night. It won't fully repair in one night either. But each night you follow this protocol, you shift the balance. Less breakdown, more repair. And over weeks, sometimes as few as 6 to 8 weeks, you can see measurable improvement. The white spots fade, the sensitivity decreases, the rough texture smooths out. That's your body rebuilding. That's proof that you caught it in time, but only if you start, and only if you stay consistent. Why most people fail, even when they know what to do? Let's address the uncomfortable reality. You've probably heard some version of this advice before. Brush, floss, use fluoride, avoid sugar. It's not new information. So why doesn't everyone do it? Because information alone doesn't change behavior. What changes behavior is emotional weight. And for most people, dental care doesn't carry enough emotional weight until it's too late. Until there's pain. Until there's a bill they can't afford. Until there's visible damage they can't hide. That's when the emotional weight arrives. And by then, the options have narrowed. But right now, You're in a different position. You're feeling something, not agony, not crisis, but enough to make you search for answers. That discomfort you feel, that's actually a gift. It's your body's early warning system. It's giving you time to act before the situation escalates. And the question is, will you use that time? Or will you do what most people do, which is acknowledge the problem, feel a surge of motivation, maybe even brush extra well tonight, and then gradually drift back into old patterns, because that's the real challenge, not knowing what to do, but sustaining it when the initial urgency fades. When the tooth stops bothering you, not because it healed, but because you got used to the sensation. When life gets busy and bedtime routines get sloppy again. When the fear subsides and the old habits creep back in. That's when most people lose the battle, not to ignorance, but to inconsistency. And the decay process doesn't care about your intentions, it only responds to conditions. So if you create the right conditions for a week, then revert to the wrong conditions for a month, you lose ground. The demineralization that started to reverse starts progressing again, and you end up right back where you started, except now you've lost time. This is why accountability matters. This is why having a clear protocol matters. This is why understanding the stakes matters. Because when you truly grasp that every night you skip this routine, you're giving decay more time to work. It becomes harder to justify skipping. When you understand that the window for reversal is real but limited, procrastination feels riskier. When you recognize that the cost of prevention is a fraction of the cost of treatment, the math becomes obvious, but knowledge doesn't enforce itself. You have to choose it every night, not because it's convenient, not because it's easy, but because the alternative is worse. And if you're someone who struggles with follow-through, who starts strong but fades over time, there's something that can help. A structured approach designed specifically for people who need more than just information. They need a system. Check the pinned comment for a method that builds consistency into the process, so you're not relying on willpower alone. Because willpower is finite. Systems are sustainable. And sustainability is what separates temporary improvement from lasting change. The hidden cost of waiting. Here's a financial reality check. A good fluoride toothpaste costs about $6. A remineralizing rinse, maybe $12. Floss, $3. Total monthly investment in prevention, maybe $25 if you're using premium products. Now let's look at the alternative. A single cavity filling in the United States averages between $200 and $400 without insurance. Root canal, anywhere from $700 to $1,500. Crown on top of that, another $800 to $1,700, and if it goes beyond repair, extraction and implant. We're talking $3,000 to $6,000 per tooth. That's not scare tactics, that's the cost structure of reactive dental care. And here's what makes it worse. Dental insurance, if you even have it, often covers only a percentage. And there are annual maximums, usually around $1,500, which means if you need multiple procedures, you're paying out of pocket for the rest. So when people say they can't afford preventive care, what they're really saying is they can't see the math, because $25 a month to prevent decay is infinitely cheaper than $4,000 to fix it. But the human brain doesn't calculate that way. We discount future costs. We prioritize immediate comfort. We assume it won't happen to me until it does, and then the financial reality hits all at once, not as a monthly expense you can plan for, but as an emergency you have to scramble to cover. Credit cards, payment plans, delayed treatment because you can't afford it right now. And the longer treatment is delayed, the worse the problem gets. A cavity that could have been filled becomes an infection becomes an abscess. An abscess becomes a medical emergency. And suddenly you're not just dealing with a dental bill, you're dealing with antibiotics, possible hospitalization, lost work days, the cost compounds, and it all traces back to a decision point, a moment, maybe even tonight, where you could have interrupted the process, where consistent, simple actions could have prevented the cascade, but you didn't. Not because you couldn't, but because it didn't feel urgent, because the discomfort was mild, because tomorrow seemed soon enough. And that's the trap. Decay is patient. It doesn't need you to make one catastrophic mistake. It just needs you to make small compromises consistently. Skip the nighttime brush a few times a week. Ignore the sensitivity because it comes and goes. Assume that because it's not getting worse fast, it's not getting worse at all. And one day, usually without much warning, you cross the line. From, I should probably get this checked, to, I need a dentist immediately. And the person sitting in that chair, facing a bill they weren't prepared for, dealing with pain they could have avoided, is often someone who had all the information, who knew what to do, but didn't believe it applied to them until it did. So here's the question worth asking yourself. What's more expensive in the long run, $25 a month in prevention or thousands of dollars in treatment? What's more painful, 2 minutes of brushing every night or hours in a dental chair? What's more disruptive, flossing before bed or taking time off work for emergency procedures? The answers are obvious, but only if you're willing to look at them honestly. What happens? If you do nothing, let's walk through the timeline. Not to scare you, but to clarify. Because understanding the progression is what makes the urgency real. Right now, you're likely in the demineralization phase. White spots on the enamel. Maybe some sensitivity to cold or sweet. Texture changes you can feel with your tongue. This phase can last weeks, sometimes months. It depends on your oral environment, your diet, your hygiene, your genetics. But it doesn't last forever. Eventually, the enamel weakens to the point where the surface breaks down. That's cavitation. An actual hole, structural loss. At this point, remineralization can't help. The tooth material is gone. Bacteria have penetrated the outer layer and reached the dentin underneath. And dentin is softer than enamel, which means decay progresses faster once it gets there. You might not feel this right away. Dentin has nerve pathways, but early cavity formation can still be painless, so you keep waiting. And the cavity deepens. Eventually, it reaches the pulp chamber. That's where the nerve and blood supply live. Now you feel it. Sharp pain, throbbing, sensitivity that doesn't go away. That's pulpitis, inflammation of the nerve. And at this stage, a filling isn't enough. The nerve is involved. You need a root canal. The dentist removes the infected pulp, cleans out the canal system, seals it, and usually places a crown to protect what's left of the tooth. Expensive, time-consuming, uncomfortable, but still better than the alternative. Because if you ignore it even longer, if the pain comes and goes, and you convince yourself it's not that bad, the infection doesn't just stay in the tooth. It spreads to the surrounding bone. That's an abscess. Swelling, severe pain, sometimes fever. The infection can spread to other parts of your face, your jaw, even your bloodstream in extreme cases. Now, it's not just a dental issue, it's a medical emergency. You need antibiotics, possibly incision and drainage, and still eventually you'll need the root canal or extraction. Except now you've also dealt with days or weeks of severe pain, potential complications, and a much higher total cost. And the tooth that could have been saved with early intervention might now need to be removed. Extraction, implant, months of healing, thousands of dollars, that's the timeline. From a faint sensation to a missing tooth. And every step along the way there was an opportunity to stop it. But each opportunity has a smaller window than the one before. Right now, the window is wide. You can still reverse this with at-home care and consistency. A month from now? Maybe. Depends on how fast it's progressing. 6 months from now? Probably not. You'll likely need professional intervention. A year from now? Definitely not. You'll be managing damage, not preventing it. So when people say, "I'll deal with it later," what they don't realize is that later often means when the options are worse and the cost is higher. And the version of you that has to deal with that will wish you had acted tonight. The psychological trap of gradual decline. Here's something fascinating about how the human mind works. We're terrible at perceiving slow change. If something happens suddenly, a sharp pain, a visible crack, we react immediately. But if something degrades gradually, we adapt. We normalize. We convince ourselves it's not that different from yesterday. And yesterday wasn't that different from the day before, so we don't act. This is why people can gain 50 pounds without noticing, why relationships deteriorate without intervention, why health problems go unaddressed until they're critical, because gradual change doesn't trigger our alarm systems, and tooth decay is the perfect example. Day 1, a tiny bit of mineral loss, unnoticeable. Day 30, slightly more, still not obvious. Day 90, a faint white spot. You might see it if you look closely, or you might not. Day 180, the spot is more defined. Some sensitivity, but it comes and goes, so it's easy to dismiss. Day 365, the white spot is turning brown. The sensitivity is more frequent, but you've adapted. It's your normal now. And then one day, maybe day 400, maybe day 500, you bite down on something and feel a sharp crack. Or you wake up with throbbing pain that won't stop, and suddenly you're in crisis mode. But here's the thing, the crisis didn't happen suddenly. It was building the entire time. You just didn't perceive it as urgent until it forced you to. And by then, your options are limited. But this is the trap. And the only way out of it is to act before you feel forced to treat the faint signal as if it matters, because it does. Not because it's painful right now, but because of where it's headed. And the earlier you intervene, the simpler the solution. Why tonight is the turning point. So here we are. You've read this far, which means part of you is taking this seriously. Part of you recognizes that what you're feeling isn't nothing, and part of you is ready to do something about it. But there's probably another part, maybe the louder part, that's still hesitant, still thinking, "I'll start tomorrow," or "I'll see how it feels in the morning," or "I'll make a dentist appointment soon and deal with it then." And I want to be direct with you. Those thoughts are normal. They're also the same thoughts that lead people to lose teeth they could have saved, because tomorrow becomes next week, soon becomes next month, and "I'll deal with it then" becomes "I should have dealt with it sooner." So let me ask you this. What's actually stopping you from acting tonight? Not tomorrow, not next week, tonight. Is it effort? It takes maybe 5 minutes to brush, floss, and rinse properly. Is it cost? The products you need are cheaper than a single meal out. Is it doubt that you're not sure it'll work? Because here's the truth. You don't need certainty, you just need probability. And the probability that consistent care will slow or reverse early demineralization is high, much higher than the probability that ignoring it will somehow improve the situation. So what's really stopping you is a choice between short-term comfort and long-term consequences, between hoping it resolves itself and creating the conditions for resolution, between drifting and deciding. And tonight is one of those rare moments where a decision actually matters. Not because it guarantees a perfect outcome, but because it shifts the odds in your favor. Because what you do in the next hour could determine whether this stays manageable or becomes something you regret not addressing sooner. So here's what I'd recommend. Don't overthink it. Just do the protocol. Floss, brush, rinse. No late night snacks, do it tonight. And then do it again tomorrow night. And the night after that. Not because I said so, but because you decided that your long-term dental health is worth 5 minutes of intention every night. And if you want a structured system to follow, something more detailed than just brush and floss, check the guide in the description. It walks through the exact products, timing, and techniques that give you the best chance of reversing early decay. Because this isn't about perfection, it's about direction. And right now, you get to choose which direction you're moving in, toward repair or toward regret. The choice is yours, but the window is closing. If this helped clarify what's happening and what you can do about it, subscribe to the channel. There's more coming, information that can help you stay ahead of problems before they force you to react. Your tooth is already changing. The question is, are you going to change with it? Or are you going to wait until it's too late to do anything simple about it? The answer to that question starts tonight.